view. There is also some modern kinds of views about how was the Vedic knowledge revealed. Okay, and of course there are also some who hold they have been written down by people. So we will at least look at how many kinds of views exist, the theories exist, and we are of course wanting to see the traditional view as the revelation, or this is seen, mantras, drishta, they are not composed. Okay, that is, if Vishwamitra has been called the Rishi of Gayatri Mantra, it is not that he composed the Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra exists and it is getting received through a lot of meditation, a lot of divine blessing, etc. So, we will first begin with how did the tradition account for this receipt of or getting of this knowledge. Then, of course, there are also the recent views, the modern views. Yes, we will at least have to be aware of the different kinds of viewpoints, and I will just begin with the traditional view. The traditional view has been mentioned in one Brahma Sutras, Purvamimamsa Sutras of Jaimini, as well as Smritis like Manusmriti. Okay, so what does it mean that a mantra is seen? That is, it is drishta and not kirta. It is not made by somebody. Someone does not compose. I have some experience. I will express that in certain words. This is not the way. So something which exists at all times, of course, can be only received with people with the necessary ability and equipment. So those who can receive this eternal or Nitya Shabda Rashi are said to be Rishis. And this is also mentioned from the Vedas onwards. Vedas itself have Rishis went on doing penance or tapas, austerities and meditation, which leads them to become able to receive this eternal knowledge. Though it exists at all times, it is not that everyone can receive that or everyone will hear it all the time. This is something like maybe very crude analogy would be like the radio waves present in the air. And you tune to a particular frequency, to a particular direction, etc. at times, so that from your location you are capable of receiving certain kinds of sounds, and certain others, maybe because of distance, maybe because of weakness of the signal, etc., one is not able to receive. Similar to that is Vedas, when we say they are Nitya or eternal, these Vedic mantras are the Shabdas, the Shabda Rashi I was mentioning last time. This is present at all times, and there are two kinds of users. One set of people who keep using it all times, something like the Sanakadi Rishis, let us say in Brahmaloka or in Vaikuntha etc., where people who are liberated or people who are highly accomplished in terms of spiritual achievement, they are able to see or hear this at all times. Whereas for the others, it requires a lot of effort, and through this effort, they become capable of receiving this. But it also has this divine blessing angle. So the Vedas have said, in the Taittiriya Aranyaka, there is a mention about how does somebody become a Rishi. So, Rishinam Rishitvam Kidrisham. This is the kind of question taken up. This is in the Swadhyaya Brahmana of Taittiriya Aranyaka, the second chapter of Taittiriya Aranyaka, where it says, Rishis who had no blemish, no papas, no hostile activities as defined in the Shastras, those who stick to the path of Satya, they became capable of receiving the divine blessing. Vatarashanaha, Rishayaha, Shramanaha, Urdhvamanchinaha, Babhuvuhu. So, they were not even taking food, they were only living on air. Vatashana is the kind of word. So that there is no way some sin can get attached to them. Shramanaha, they were all the time concentrating on solutions or answers to the problems of the world, or why does somebody have difficulties, sorrow, disease, etc. Whereas how to achieve bliss or how to be in the natural state has been the starting point for this. Everyone aspires to be blissful, but no one is able to achieve it continually. So the Shramana word actually says they were contemplating all the time, observing various phenomena in the world and trying to see the correlation between what could be the cause for this and how does this effect take place. So such rishis were capable of receiving the divine message or divine sounds. Ajan, Prishnin, Tapasyamanan, Brahma Swayambhu Abhyanarishat. This is the statement. Once they became pure and all the time concentrating single-mindedly, focusedly on how to get the true situation known, realized, and then of course help others to come out of their difficulties, sorrow, etc. When this reached a level of purity that the Brahma itself, that is the Paratattva or the Paramatma, Parabrahma, he came towards them, which means that they could hear the sounds of the Veda. So Brahma Swayambhu Abhyanarshat. Abhi means towards them. Anarshat came or approached. This is what it means. Then a person towards whom Brahma comes calling or visits him, such a person is designated as Rishi. Brahma Swayambhu Abhyanarshat te Rishayaha Abhavan tat Rishinam Rishitvam. This is one kind of an etymology for the word Rishi given in the Taittiriya Aranyaka itself. So someone reaches the level of being received the divine sounds, the Shabda Rashi of Vedas is designated as a Rishi. Okay. So now, such a kind of adhikaris are the kind of people who can receive such divine sounds are now called as Rishis. Every Vedic mantra has a person who has seen or who has experienced firsthand the Vedic sounds, and hence they are called as Rishis. Now, Rishabh is one root in the Panini's Dhatu Pata, one who has the experience, one is able to see. It actually means to go. Gati means to go. All roads which mean Gati also mean Jnana. That is, someone needs to physically go to a place to know what is there, what is happening. Whereas someone can mentally also traverse in the space and still know what is happening where. So, the Rishis, when they are able to receive this kind of divine revelations, this is coming by the blessing or the choice of the Parabrahma itself. But anyone can reach a stage where, yes, you have reached the situation, you are fit to receive the instructions, then they get revealed automatically. Now, this process also requires a guru in between. And where does guru figure in this? This is where an explanation is given when the Parabrahma can reach anybody because it is all pervasive, sarvavyapi, it can reach anyone. But the person should have the prerequisites of tapasya, purity of thought, deeds and actions and words. Such a person who is wanting to do something good universally is chosen to get that knowledge, get that sounds, get the Shabda Rashi. Now, for this also, suppose Vishwamitra has reached a level of tapas that he is now fit to receive the Gayatri mantra. He becomes the Rishi mantra. That is, the mantra comes towards him, he is able to see, he is able to get the meaning, he is able to see its effect. He can be fully aware or experience its multifaceted aspects. Then he can teach it to others. Now he has assimilated to a good extent to be called an expert, an exponent of this mantra. Now in between this, Parabrahma, Paramatma is there even during Mahapralaya, then maybe there is no one here in this, the world itself undergoes Mahapralaya. That means it gets dissolved into its own karanas and the material cause. Then these sounds still exist. There are people who are liberated from this bondage. Those muktas or the siddhas, those are there. They will be still reciting this. The Taittiriya Upanishad has also mentioned those who are released from the bondage. Upasankramya iman lokan kamanni kamarupi amsancharan etat samagayan naste. He keeps on reciting these Vedas continually. So Vedas exist. The users are the consumers are not there during Mahapralaya, but during Srishti, at the first step, the Paramatma creates Chaturmukha Brahman, who is called the Andadhipati. Chaturmukha is the in charge of the whole Brahmanda. To him, Vedas are taught. Yo Brahmanam Vedadati Purvam, Yo Vai Vedasya Prahinoti Tasmai. So this Paramatma hands over or gives the instructions of Vedas to Chaturmukha Brahma first. And through him, of course, this Parampara starts. Tadhaita Brahma Prajapatiye Uvacha. This Chaturmukha then tells various Prajapatis. There are 9 Prajapatis who are designated to carry on with creation. Prajapati Manave. And Prajapatis teach it to various manus. There are 14 manus. Mukha Prajabhyaha. Then Acharya Kula Vedam Adhitya. So the Chandogya says traditionally this is the way Vedic knowledge gets handed over right from inception, right from the creation, cosmic creation, till our lives or even future generations. So this knowledge is eternal, present all the time, reveals itself to those who are capable of receiving through tapascharya, through purity of the three karanas. Then their approach, it is revealed to them from the Brahman side. They are called as rishis. So because this is Arsheya, this has to only come through rishi. It's not possible by any other means, by conjecture or by guesswork, by inference, whatever. It's not possible. It's not manually composed or created. So this is the step, which is of course explained in a nice sloka in Manusmriti. Yugante Antarhitan Vedan. The Vedas are hidden during Mahapralaya. Yuganta is when the Chatur Yugas are there in them, let's say at the last cycle, when the last Kali Yuga is over and there is a Mahapralaya, that is called Yuganta. Then when there is a Srishti again, that is called Yugadi. So when the Mahapralaya takes place, Yugante, Vedas become Antarhita. There is no one else, even the Tattvas dissolve into their Karana, so that even Akasha will dissolve into its Karana, finally Prakriti, and Prakriti will become one with the Lord. So what will happen is there won't be any sound, there won't be any physical matter which can be experienced, and there won't be a person who will be exchanging experiences. So from at this stage, Yugante Antarhitan Vedan, it says there is no Nasha of Vedas. Vedas are hidden. Vedas are not heard in this Prakriti Mandala or the Brahmanda. Antarhitan Vedan, Yugante, Setihasan, along with the Itihasas and Puranas, Vedas are not available for any user, of course for want of users. Yugante Antarhitan Vedan Setihasan Maharshayaha Lebhire Tapasa Purvam. So when the creation or Srishti begins again, when the Yugadi starts, the Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga, when it starts during creation, Maharshis are able to receive this sound. Maharshayaha Purvam Tapasa Lebhire. Various rishis for various mantras, they received these eternal sounds through tapas. But there it also is mentioned that Yugante Antarhitan Vedan Setihasan Maharshayaha Lebhire Tapasa Purvam Anujñataha Swayambhuva. All of these rishis require the blessing or anugraha of Chaturmukha, who is the first of the person to whom Vedas were revealed or sent by Parabrahma or Paramatma. So, Brahma is the first Acharya, then through Prajapatis, Manus, and then the various rishis. Even in Gita, if we see about the yoga, the Lord mentioned, Mahase Saptapurve Tattaro Manavastatha. And this I told, Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktvan Hamaviyam. So this comes through the Saptarishis, Devarishis, various Maharishis, their Prajapatis, Manus, etc. They are in the chain. So this is something which has no beginning or no end. Anadi Nidhana Shesha Vag Uttrishta Swayambhuva Adau Vedamayi Divya Yata Sarva Prasutaya. This last time also I mentioned. For all creation, the only guideline or the instruction book are these Vedas. And they are present all the time. They are initially handed over to, the instructions are given to Brahma, the Andadhipati, and through him, he also asks others to carry on for portions of this work. He delegates that with, of course, the instructions to them. So this is how the traditional view is that these are revealed or discovery from fundamental principles underlying later development and guiding spirit for later developments is one other possibility. It is not just that they keep reciting, they also apply this, try out various ways of its effects, understand what all is useful for what all kind of effects. So which mantra can cause what effect, etc. This is studied, properly assimilated, then propagated. So that is how in tradition Vedas are neither created nor get lost. They may be in use or may not be in use. This is the only possibility. And those who can receive this knowledge are those who are accomplished in terms of their spiritual evolution. Okay? And they are chosen and things are revealed to them. This is one view. Now, apart from this, there are of course the different views like I mentioned earlier. They are getting created, there are different times it is done, there is a sequence, various things. Fine. In the traditional view, there is no sequence. Let us say Rigveda is first, Yajurveda second, Samveda third, like that, it is not there. And even among them, Samhita came first, then Brahmanas, etc. Vedic period, Brahmana period, Upanishad period. This is all not accepted in tradition. The Abhadhita Pramanas do not show us that this is the state. The Abhadhita Pramanas actually establish that they remain all the time. They may be in use, they can go out of use, but they can again be revived, or someone else can bring it back and continue the propagation. There are a number of Chiranjeevis, like see Vyasa himself, Veda Vyasa is a Chiranjeevi. So he remains forever. So it is his duty to see whenever there is a reduction in the followers or the adherents of the Sanatana Dharma, of the Veda Vidya, then he teaches to someone, finds suitable adhikaris at various times, then revives this or makes this refreshed. So this way it will never die. There can be undulations, maybe there could be at times all shakhas available, at some times certain shakhas not available. And again, this is a cycle, things go up and down. So dharma can be increasing, stagnant, reducing. Karaladi, of course, adharma also. Adharma will be very less. It will be almost nil in the beginning of Kritya Yuga. Adharma can keep increasing, dharma can keep reducing with the advent of further yugas. But then again, there is always an inbuilt refreshing mechanism. In the worst point or the lowest point would be, let us say, Kali Yuga's end. Then, of course, the whole thing is reset and then Kritya Yuga starts all over again. This is what Lord Krishna means in Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati tada atmanam srijamyaham. There is also one more thing he said, abhyuthanam adharmasya. So this word glani is a very significant word. It's an important word used by Krishna. Glani actually means, suppose there is a plant and this plant is growing nicely. But due to hot sun, it slowly becomes withering down or it loses its potential. It becomes what we call glana. Glani is something drying up, losing its potential, full potential. But this is not death or destruction or end of that. The word hani is not used by Krishna. Yada yada dharmasya hanir bhavati, he did not say. He said glani. Yes, it may be at its pinnacle, it may be at its highest point of glory. It can slowly, of course, come down from there, but it won't go totally to zero. Suppose dharma is at 25% level, and that is something called, say, Kali Yuga now. 100% dharma when it begins, all mantras as and when needed, there will be right kind of adhikaris to receive them and then help people out with achieving whatever people would like to do. So, this is possible that whenever you think of something, you want something, there will be help readily available on hand. This situation keeps reducing. This becomes weaker and weaker. So, it is not that it will go away. So, yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi, then if dharma gets glana or it is slowly shrinking or withering down, then abhyutthanam adharmasya will take place. Adharma starts raising its head, and once it grows beyond an acceptable limit, then of course the Lord will reincarnate himself. Tada atmanam srijamyaham. So it is his duty. He has said, I am the custodian, I am the protector of this. So no one need to worry unduly or get panicky. But what one needs to do is, of course, follow Swadharma. Do our duty and leave the results to God. So that is what he has very clearly mentioned. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu. So it is not that you can think that because I did something I achieved, or because of me something is living. That is not the traditional view. It's not right. So tradition holds that you do your duty. Yes, then you are eligible to expect some good results. But you are not the only cause for the results to happen. So there are also others. Adhishthanam, tata karta, karanancha prasakt vidham, devidhacha prasakteshta, daivancha ivatra panchamam. So Gita has, of course, given this kind of proper teaching to understand what is the cosmic situation, what is the universal situation, where are we, what are we supposed to do. We cannot be aggrieved or worried about what will happen to the world tomorrow kind of thing. If we are able to do our duty with a sense of duty, with a sense of service, with a sense of devotion to the God, then nothing will go wrong, and whatever needs to happen is being taken care all the time by Him, who of course is omniscient, omnipresent, etc. So, in this way, the traditional view of receiving mantras is through the proper adhikaris. Mundagopanishad also has such a mention. By our own efforts, it's not possible. Only by our own efforts it is not possible to receive the mantras, however much one may wish. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. It's not by physical efforts, mental efforts, etc. that we can achieve the sakshatkara of the Lord. We can see Him, get this mantras, etc. Yameva eshaha vrunute tena labhyaha. Whomever He chooses will be able to receive. To him, He will explain. Tasyesha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Only thing that we should do is be capable, be fit to receive the blessing, the divine blessing. So, whoever can do this, by number of ways, it is possible to get this divine message, the content of the Vedic knowledge. Many a times, even as a guideline, you are in a dilemma, which way to proceed, there could be a divine kind of interjection, some intervention, which gives you clear instruction, proceed this way, not the other way, kind of. So, Vedas actually are at that level. They are actually physically helpful in making the world happy, make everyone achieve what he would like to rightfully, but of course following his duties, following his obligation. So, Vedic revelation as opposed to Vedic creation, this is one is the traditional side. Of course, many people say, yes, all mantras are in the form of characters. They require someone to speak it out, and unless some person recites, the others will not even be able to know that this mantra is there, this person is saying this. How will this sound without a person articulating this be present? And of course, for that, we have given the answer like, if you have the waves form, sound is in the form of waves and it can exist in the space either or in the akasha. It's up to us to see whether we are able to receive all sounds at any given time. This is not true. No one is able to receive all the sounds that are present at a given space at any time. So there are certain kinds of filters, certain kinds of receiving mechanisms, and even suppose you are in a very thick traffic junction, let us say, there is so much of hustle and bustle around, still we find people who are able to carry on, let us say, with telephone conversations or listening to music or, talking to each other, etc. Which means there is also an innate capability either to filter out or focus on or receive some sound among a cacophony of sounds, among an assorted sounds simultaneously being present. So this is the capability of the living beings to be able to pick or receive sounds, and similarly it applies to rupa, it applies to sparsha, rasa, etc. So the basic five gunas, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, have their own associated indriyas, that is the sense organs and the sense faculties. So there is a mechanism given. It's given to everyone. It is innate. It is a genetic trait of all living beings that they will be able to, if they want to, if they train themselves and they can concentrate. So it is not that there is a need for someone to be all the time chanting this. They can be present in the form of sound waves, and then there could be a mechanism of receiving this through training, through continuous effort. So that question gets answered this way, that there is no need that someone has created this, someone tries to tell you kind of. This can be present. Of course, the Vedic view is Paramatma is Sarvajna. He knows all the time the entire mass of the Vedic sound. And so he blesses whomsoever to receive whatever, then that person is able to get that, propagate, use it, etc. Another possibility, another question taken up in the Brahma Sutras is about, if we say Vedas are Nitya, they are eternal, then there are certain anomalies. One of the anomalies is, Vedas do mention about many names of persons like Rishis, Devatas, even places and things like that. Now, if these things are mentioned in the Vedas, they must have been historically composed. That is, an event or a person or an episode cannot get mentioned unless this has happened, and this mentioning must be after the event. This is one kind of an objection. This is also taken up in the Jaimini Sutras and Purvamamsa, and Vedanta also in the Brahma Sutras, first chapter, third quarter. There is an Adhikarana called Devata Adhikarana, where Vyasa also deals with this question. So there are mention of Devatas, mention of Anitya Vastus, mention of later objects or places or events in the Vedas, and if we hold them to be there all the time, then this is contradictory. This is the Purvapaksha. This is the question. To which, of course, he answers, the assumption of the Purvapaksha or the person objecting is that this is like a worldly event where after an event has happened, one will be able to describe that. Whereas Vedas are not such a text. This is something which I also mentioned in the last lecture, that this is a guideline for creation itself. So it does not require that all things are ready, available, then we will describe. This is not a history kind of book. This is the basis on which the creation itself takes place. Then these different worlds which are having a finite beginning, they have a finite life, and they also have a finite end. Even these objects are created to have those properties from these very Vedic sentences or the Vedic Shabdarashi. Okay? Which means, how should a Brahma look like? What all should be his abilities and what all he should be doing? How will Indra look like? What are the abilities of Surya, Chandra, Nakshatras, etc. So any object in the world, like last time I mentioned, Nama, Rupa and Kritya, Sarvani, Rupani, Vichitya, Namani, Kritva, Abhivadan, Brahma Purusha Sukta also mentions this. So from Vedas, these objects, these people, this event get described or get created. So it is not that Veda came after they came into being. This is only true with Vedic sounds. No other things can create objects, and so the same argument cannot hold with, let us say, Valmiki created Ramayana. No, with Ramayana, the entire story of Ramayana took place. That won't be right. Whereas in the Vedic text, this part is true. Veda Shabdebhya Evado, Devadinam Chakarasaha. Last time I mentioned, Manu also has said, all creation takes place from the utterance of the Vedic sounds. And so there, whatever words, whatever temporary items or things of the past, etc. are mentioned, they are created from the Vedic sounds, and exactly as per the description there, they live out their life cycle. So something is there all the time, something is there for some time, something is there for a very short time, like dreams, for example. Dreams die out in a very short duration. So there also a good discussion. There is an Adhikarana in the Vedanta Sutras. So the traditional view has looked at all possible objections, all possible apparent contradictions, and then found solutions to see. This is a sound theory which says that Vedic sounds are eternal, and still they can have description about things that would come later or that would end after some time, etc. There is nothing wrong. So now this is one angle, okay, that is about the creation. Of course, they have their own chandas. No one creates them in a particular chandas. The meter for that. There are also the meaning for each of those sounds, the objects denoted by the words of the Vedic mantras. So that is called as Devata. And of course, each one is capable of, each mantra is capable of various effects. That is said to be the Vinyoga. So every Vedic mantra has these four aspects: Rishi, Chandas, Devata, and Vinyoga. Rishi is the person who received this first and then propagated. Chandas is the arrangement. If it is poetry, it will be in the form of so many letters, so many padas, so many kinds of chandas, the meters, etc. In the case of Yajus, of course, it is prose, and prose also has certain kinds of descriptions as Akshara Chandas. There the chandas is measured through number of syllables and not only padas or the number of padas kind of thing. So there is a rhythmic way of the recitation of the mantras, which is the chandas aspect of it. The third, of course, is the Devata. Any mantra will have some meaning, and this meaning refers to certain object. So Yatena Uchyate Sa Devata Yasya Vakyam Sa Rishihi. These are the kinds of sutras in the Purva Mimamsa which describe the Rishi for a mantra, Chandas for a mantra, Gayatri Adi Chandas, Gayatri, Ushnik, Anushtuk, Brihati, Trishtuk, Chandas, Jagati, Pankti, etc. These are names of various kinds of arrangements of the letters into padas and named as a Chandas. So this is for the rhythm. So there is a person who receives this first, there is a rhythmic way of putting this across. There is some mention of objects or things to do. It may be prayers, it may be instructions, it may be various descriptions. And then there is also the utility of these mantras for various benefits, various purposes and applications. So this fourfold division, Rishi, Chando, Devata, Vinyoga, Yukta mantras, maybe Rik, Yajus, Sama, etc. All these are simultaneous, they are all eternal, and they remain without any errors or mistakes in them. The second aspect of this Vedas, when they are revealed, is they are nirdosha. There is no possibility of any mistake, anything wrong. Because unless a person has created and he has some kind of ignorance or mistaking or knowing something as something else, etc., the utterances or the expressions have no reason to be wrong, no reason to be invalid. And so Vedas are self-valid, valid at all times. So there is no dosha. We call Vedas Nitya and Nirdosha. Nitya means it remains forever. But all the times we don't hear that, and of course nowadays let us say many shakhas are lost. Lost meaning they are not in circulation now here. It does not mean they are not there anywhere, anytime. Okay? So one is the Nityatva, and so they get revealed. Second aspect is, because it is revealed, there is no error, there is nothing to doubt or suspect or to be in apprehension about. Okay, Vedas say this, Can we believe? That kind of a thinking need not come. Though Vedas talk about things which cannot be easily seen or experienced by our senses, we can believe them with utmost faith simply because it is handed down through an unbroken chain of our ancestors who all have the ability to see things as they are, who have those sakshatkara, and since they are our well-wishers, there is no need to doubt or suspect them. So now from this point of view, this nityatva apaurushaya is the other word. That is, this nirdoshatva is mentioned in the form in a word called apaurushaya. A word composed by a person willfully is said to be paurushaya. Purusha kritam paurushayam. Vedas are not created by anybody. So they are apaurushaya. They remain forever. Unless there is a beginning, we don't have to have an author or a person who created them. Since Vedas also mention this vacha, virupa, nityaya, Manu also anadhanidhana, shesha, vagutsrishta. So this is having no beginning, no end. It remains all the time. So there is no possibility of any error in this. So this apaurushayatva, this word of course has to be a little familiar. We should be at least keep using this. Vedas are nitya and apaurushaya. Apaurushaya is there is no purusha karta. It includes even the God himself. He also did not create this. He is aware of this all the time. He knows and then he keeps maintaining this, teaching this, helping out people. So, Purusha Kartrika is Paurushaya, and that which is not having a Purusha as Karta is Apaurushaya. Vedas are Apaurushaya. So, the traditional view, as explained in the Mimamsa Shastra, which is meant to describe the meanings of the Vedas, give us the methodology and approach to understand the Vedic statements, that Shastra gives us these kinds of details. This is the traditional view. Okay? Vedas have no beginning end. As opposed to this, if you treat this as any other sound, any other grantha or text, then of course the other possibilities, that is the kind of the modern view, like okay, if there should be a sound, there should be a speaker. So the speaker should precede the sound. This is the kind of argument. Like, of course, we have explained in the tradition, there is an answer, very good, clear, valid answer to see that fine. This need not be the case in all cases. So, sounds can be Paurushaya and Apaurushaya. Among Paurushaya, yes, these kinds of inferences are possible. There could be mistake. A person himself does not know, or he knows it wrongly, or he knows it rightly, and then wants to mislead others by projecting it wrongly. These kinds of mistakes are possible. Brahma, Pramada, Vipralipsa, these are the kinds of words used in the traditional Shastra, where these can affect the validity of the Pramanya of a statement. In the case of Veda, because there is no Karta, there is no possibility of these errors. There is no Brahma. That is, Brahma is mistaking. Pramada is unknowingly, inadvertently. In order to say something, someone says something else. That kind of a inadvertent mistake is also not possible. And willful misleading also is not possible. That is Vipralitsa kind. Since there is no author, God included, they know it all the time. He keeps propagating, protecting, not creating. So this is something which need not be doubted. That is the basis of all the Astika Darshanas. All Shastras or the Darshanas have this as one fundamental thing, that Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and Vedas themselves are eternal and faultless, blemishless. Okay. This is one angle. If this is not accepted, what would happen is that we will not be able to account for this long, unbroken chain of propagation of this knowledge. There is no time when there is ever a mention. After Vedas come into being, these can be discussed. There is no time when Vedas never existed. At any given time, however back one might go in time, there has always been. Vedas also have such mention in the Upanishads, in the Karmakanda both. We have been told like this by our ancestors. Purve ebhyo vacha etadutuhu. Even the Purvajas learned from their Purvajas and then propagated. No one ever said, this person created, or no one ever has said, there was a time when Vedas did not exist. So if we want to take, like every other text, this also should have an author, etc. This experience over an unbroken chain of times immemorial onward, these kind of experiences will get contradicted. So the tradition holds them to be Nitya, Nirdosha, Apaurusheya. And of course it has Rishi, Chandas, Devata, Vinyoga. It has its purpose, it has always served its purpose. And hence, people have taken to this as looked up to Vedas as the source of all instruction for achieving whatever the goals of life people might have. So, of course, certain views of late are that in the Samhitas, fine, there could be mantras which are seen by rishis. The Brahmana Vakyas in most cases, there are no rishis mentioned. So, if there is no rishi, then of course that should become Paurusheya. Paurusheya meaning someone must have created. Rishis, of course, they get it revealed, is what we mentioned. There are cases where there is no swaras available, there is no rishi mentioned. And in such cases, can't it be that there are portions of Vedas which are Nitya and Apurusheya, but other portions which are maybe Purusheya, which are fallible, etc. This, of course, is not borne out by the Vedas themselves or Shastras, that is the Sutrakaras, because they have held when a person is receiving this knowledge by divine help, he gets it with all the paraphernalia associated. Like I said earlier, this knowledge is not just at the recitation level. To realize the full force or the significance of those sounds, and for that it is necessary that they are applied somewhere, the result seen, it corroborates, then they believe and start telling others. So that includes the Brahmana Vakyas, Upanishads, Aranikas, etc. So there is no portion where there could be any situation requiring us to make Vedas have an author. And of course we have also said the counter argument, if it had an author, there are possible sets of these errors, like Brahma is possible, Pramada is possible, or Vipralipsa is possible. So from the traditional angle, when this is the situation, because maybe based on some of the Western inputs or maybe based on their own self-thinking, there is a limit to each person's thinking simply because all our thoughts are conditioned by our experiences, our exposure to the universe. So no one today can ever claim that he is exposed to every kind of scenario, every place, every event in the world. Because of our own minuteness, we are so small as against the entire universe that we will not be able to fully fathom, fully envisage or understand how the entire universe is. I used to be mentioning something like there is a Mahatma Gandhi road, let us say there in every city in the country. Mahatma Gandhi road can be a big road, highway, let's say 100 feet road and run for a long distance. If there is an ant traveling on this empty road, will this ant be able to see the entire empty road? I mean, this is just a kind of analogy. Where are we with respect to the universe, and how valid would be our assertions based only on our own physical abilities? Someone wants to say, I am rational, I won't believe something unless I am convinced and kind of thing. One should also realize that what is the limits to our knowledge, our ability, and is it possible to declare that anything that I cannot know, I cannot experience, cannot exist? Is this possible? So, from this kind of thinking, for analysis, this is how the Shastras explain. No time, nobody can claim that he is know-all, he is omniscient, omnipresent, etc. But such a tattva, such a person has created a nice system which has been handed over from times immemorial. No one knows when it began, and since it has been continuing, and people have been able to show, follow some good path, you will achieve good things, you will have peace of mind, you will have happiness, you will have satisfaction, etc., which are not material, which are not so easily possible by material acquisitions or through, you can't buy them with money, etc. So the values part of this, the experience part of it, the spiritual angle is not something which can be handled or which can be put within some straight jacket or some, rigid rules. And so there are things beyond our comprehension. This is the bedrock of the entire Astika Darshana. No one ever can claim that yes, he can know everything, he can explain everything. It's not possible. Then we look up to the masters, we look up to people who are better placed than us, or more accomplished than us. So in that chain, if we keep going up, then more than the ordinary humans, mortals are the rishis, and above them rishis are there, devatas are there, and then a creator for all of them. So all of them, if they still look up to or bow down to some great force, if they all feel that as Vedas are venerated, respectable, believable, then we don't have to question that or we don't have to doubt their wisdom. So this is how the tradition views. Gita also has said, Vedaischa sarvaihi ahameva vedyaha Vedantakrit Vedavideva chaham. All Vedas, without exception, describe me, talk about me, they are related to me. Vedaihi aham pratipadyaha, aham vedyaha, this is what he said. And I am aware of the entire thing, Vedantakrit. I created various, through the form of Vyasa. Vyasa is said to be Vishnu Rupa. I created the Mahabharata, the Brahma Sutras, Puranas, the division of Vedas, teaching that, maintaining that, etc. So, this entire cycle of Dharma, which can only be known through the agency of Vedas, is now the responsibility, and the God is now taking care through an unbroken chain of tradition. So, we don't have to equate this with any other text and then try to come up with the possible problems that we see with creations of humans. Of course, there are also cases where people mention this is written by me. That way we do not find anywhere in the Vedas anyone claiming I wrote this sukta kind of thing. So, the normal objections about Vedas not being reliable, not being authorless, not being eternal is that Vedas are also looked at like any other book, any other text. And with that analogy, of course, if something can hold for this, it can also hold for Vedas. That is the way the objections are raised. The answers given are that this is beyond any single individual's comprehension about all kinds of mantras, all kinds of their effects, etc. And it is better to be humble, learn from the feet of masters, and then be grateful to them for getting this knowledge. So, from this becomes container of knowledge at all times, including how to create things, how to maintain something, how to have harmony, how to be happy, how to achieve various goals, etc. So, this is one full set of knowledge in the form of sounds, available at all times, but requires effort to receive what is good for a person at a time, place, etc. And so, there is a chain, there is a system of acharyas, the Guru Shishya Parampara, which has been maintaining this. And of course, the only way is to nurture this and be part of this, participating in this, one can fully benefit. Otherwise, out of neglect, out of disuse, it is possible that at times, like I mentioned earlier, there can be glani of this dharma. It can get reduced to a small level. Of course, it will again come back. So, we should not be responsible for losing some great treasure of knowledge that has been handed down by our ancestors. And so tradition feels, while the Vedas are Nitya and Apaurushaya, our duty is to do the Adhyayana of Vedas and keep using them. Okay, so Vedas also have said Swadhyayaha, Adhyayatavyaha. One should do the Adhyayana from a Guru in a proper systematic manner. So Guru Mukha Adhyayana is prescribed, it's mandated that all the adhikaris, the Traivarnika Purushas are supposed to be aware of this through a Guru, keep following it in their daily life, then of course this keeps on propagating, and so the world will have a good basis support to lean upon for achieving all the goods. So in that sense there is not any other text, and so the general objections about okay that should have come first, this should have come next, because this mention is that should have been composed after that time, etc. etc. These are answered in the tradition by yes, this is the source of their creation, and so it does not get affected by them. It's not an account or history of some happenings, it is a guidebook for creation itself. So there are of course the Arya Samaj kind of views of late. Dayananda Saraswati bringing out certain kinds of explanations, certain kinds of perspective. Okay. There are of course variation in terms of who can learn this traditional knowledge. Of course, the Sanatana Dharma held that it is only authorized for the first three varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya and Vaishya, and within them only men were allowed. Then of course there are also later views expressed in the text that all can learn them, etc. Dayananda Saraswati also, the Arya Samaj also, they have tried to expand this and say no one is barred from the knowledge of Veda. Yes, as I said earlier, there are different kinds of reasons behind set of people holding certain views and opinions. So the traditional view I have explained. Similarly, they have given their own reasons from a point of view of maybe equality in terms of being able to recite. Even the Sanatana Dharma view, Sanatana system views, everyone is eligible for the benefits of Vedas, though not for the recitation. These are two different things. Whereas if somebody can benefit, why not also recite? This is equivalent to saying, suppose justice is applicable to all. No one is barred from getting justice. This is not equivalent to saying anybody can be a judge or anybody can. It takes its own efforts, its own kinds of systematic way of trying to be a judge. Getting justice does not require a person to be a judge or to be knowledgeable about law, etc. One can take other help and still benefit out of. Anyway, so there are different views. One of these views, of the recent views, is that anyone can learn, but it's not also that easy to see mantras. Though we might say, yes, I am eligible. Any human being is capable of a lot of things which he is himself maybe not aware or maybe has not been physically or practically converted into action. Then it does not, suppose we say man can fly today. That is through he has invented aeroplanes, etc. He is able to go. He is also able to go to various planets and other places. There again, of course, it is not that all have gone. Though any representative of a species can be capable of doing this or can demonstrate this, etc. So, of course, in principle, yes, there are some who are barred in the traditional view, and the modern view is there is no bar on anyone can learn. This is another view. Then, of course, there are also about the significance of the Vedas. What do they talk about? It could be anything in creation, is the traditional view. There are only philosophical things, there are only spiritual things, according to some, which of course need not be the case as per the tradition. And of course, the true sciences or Satya Vidyas are present in the Vedas. No evil things are there in the Vedas, is the other view. Vedas meaning they are pure, they only have things that are elevating, things which are helpful, and not things which are harmful. This is another view. Whereas what tradition says, if something good can be there, bad also should be part of the same thing. They can only be the aspects or the stages or maybe the conditions. A thing which is bad at a given time and place can be converted, transformed to become useful, etc. So there are both views. Vedas are always perfect, not having anything related to anything bad, wrong, etc. is one view. Contains all, to take what you want. Anyone can, of course, also get the good benefiting him, despite Vedas having all like the Gita Vakya also. Krishna mentions, Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha. There are three gunas in Prakriti. One is Sattva, second is Rajas, third is Tamas. So any object, anything in the world, any matter is made of Sattva, Rajas or Tamas. These three are there. And which is predominant will make it either Sattvic, Rajasic or Tamasic. It generally labeled out of which one is predominant, which one is suppressing the others and having its own higher effect, kind of. So any item made of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas can have various kinds of attitudes various kinds of viewpoints. People are there who hold good things have to be only done, bad things have to be avoided. The corollary also is true. There are many people who might believe only bad things have to be done, good things have to be avoided, and the others who can be in between. Okay, so only sattva meaning yathartha jnana, and then sattvam laghu prakashikam ishtam, etc. That which sees things the way they are and which strives for good of all, universal harmony, happiness, etc. Whereas rajas is something which is more provocative, more suppressive, etc. And tamas, of course, is subdued, lazy, inert, etc. Okay. So these three things are in different proportions. None of them can be absent in any person. Only thing is, people expect one to become sattvika more, that is, increase sattva more, in which case he could see things as they are. Okay, so sattvat sanjayate jnanam. That is what Gita also has mentioned. So Krishna mentions about all the three. This is sattvika, this is rajasa, this is tamasa. Even in the aharas it is said, in the yogas it is said, in the dana it is said, in the karmas it is said. There are a number of things. Everything can be divided into these three. So Vedas are related to all the three. That is what he says. Traigunya vishayaha Veda. Nistraigunyo bhavarjuna. You don't get affected by those trigunas. You rise above them. So a conscious being, a Chaitana, should be above the effects of the Sattva-Rajas Tamas, then be thinking about his spiritual elevation. And there is also another analogy about the Vedas containing every kind of thing. There, Yavan Arthaha Udapane Sarvata Samplutodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. This is also a Gita sloka. So this is like a big ocean. Vedas are like Yavan Arthaha Udapane Sarvata Samplutodake. It is full to the brim on all sides. If such a water body, source of water somebody sees, Udapana is source of water, a water source, like a big samudra, ocean. Sarvata Samplutodaka. It is full of water from all sides. It is brimming with water. Even in that, a person who is thirsty, who goes to such a vast, huge source of water, he will not be able to exhaust the whole thing. So, whatever his capacity, he would be able to consume, he will be satisfied and he will go. Even in a small pond, no one will be able to drink the whole water. But it does not mean that if you cannot exhaust it, don't go towards that. So, you take whatever is useful to you, benefiting you. So similarly, Krishna said, Vedas contain various things. See, even the Asuras, they did Vedadhyayana, they did tapas as per Vedas, they did yagas, etc. Achieved various abilities, powers, of course through varas, etc. They pleased the various deities like Brahma, took varas from them and started, of course, affecting others, disturbing, killing others, etc. So this knowledge and power can be used either way. It is not within the knowledge or the power itself, it is in the person, his attitude, his aim in life, which makes him choose a way or the other, one way or the other. So Vedas are infinite and they can contain everything that can be there in the universe, but one needs to have some guideline and choose certain things which he would like to achieve, which can be. There, of course, there is a division as is there a sattvic approach, is there a rajasic approach or tamasic approach, and what will get what kind of result. This has been listed out. So, it need not be only pure, is one kind of view. No, Vedas only talk about good things, bad things will not be found in Vedas, is another view of looking at it. That is, Veda is a source of Satya Vidyas only, true sciences. In fact, truth itself can have multiple levels and it's very difficult to comprehend what is Satya for different contexts. And that, of course, as opposed to, let us say, modern sciences. Modern sciences dismiss everything which is not experimentally corroborated. Of course, this also has its own flaw. We need to, of course, be, as students of knowledge, we need to be also asking questions about any theory that comes up for our own clarification, for consistency in the view expressed. So even the so-called modern scientific radical rational view, It's very difficult. They can throw around words, but to define them properly is not easy. Simply because, as I said earlier, there is a very great limitation on the ability of any person, any human being, to comprehend things across a very wide range of time, space, and objects. Okay, so within a given time and space also, there are innumerable objects about all of which one will never be able to get knowledge. So the point finally is that we need others' help, we need guidelines, we need masters to help out. So if that is accepted, that becomes the Astika view or the traditional view. And this, I think, is inevitable. We have been seeing, of course, it does not stop someone being inquisitive, asking questions, trying to expand one's own frontier. But one should also have a realism within that how much is one single individual capable of making out. And of course, even if many of them together collaborate, understand, and then share each one's knowledge, experience with others, the situation can become better, but it will never be infinite. So this is something which is also one of the aspects of the Indic knowledge systems, that we have always been respectful, grateful to our ancestors who have had very long life. Rishayaha dirgha satratvat dirgham ayur avapnuvan. This is what Manu mentioned. They used to be all the time doing yajna, and by this yajna they could have a very long life and see lot of correlation between causes and effects, and hence their wisdom, their knowledge is much more useful, much more of a higher order than ordinary mortals. Okay? And so it is worthwhile to have faith in them and follow what they have said for our own benefit. This is the kind of view. Now, it is also possible that the yajna itself as a concept is not properly understood in today's context, but we also need to know, yes, Vedas talk about every happening in the universe as some form of yajna. Yajna as a word, of course, we need to understand. Of course, we find it in the English translations very loosely translated as sacrifice kind of thing. Yajna is not just sacrifice. And sacrifice also, the way, of course, it is explained in various English translations or other language translations, it always falls short of the concept of yajna as mentioned in the Vedas. But it is important. We need to, of course, understand yajna also is a form of knowledge. So Vedas are meant for it. Vedahi yajnartham abhipravruttaha. This is mentioned in the Vedanga Jyotisha text. It begins with Lagadha was the Rishi who wrote the Vedanga Jyotisha, Vedic astronomy text. In his sutras he begins with Vedahi yajnartham abhipravruttaha. And yajna, in a very simplistic definition, he mentioned nirdishta kala prabhavascha yajnaha. Yajnas do have a lot of significance, lot of importance attached to time aspect. Different times, different duties have to be performed. So nirdishta kala prabhavaha yajnaha. So anything does not qualify as yajna unless it is done with some discipline, unless it is done with some proper way it has been prescribed. So Vedas are meant for yajnas. Yajnas are time-bound activities. Nirdishta kala prabhavasta yajna. So the Vedic Vedanga Jyotisha, Vedic astronomy talks about how to understand the concept of kala as applicable to the Vedic kriya. So tasmad idam kala vidhana shastram yo jyotisham veda saveda yajna. This is what Rishi Lagadha mentions in the Vedanga Jyotisha. So someone who knows this Shastra, the Vedanga Jyotisha Shastra, which talks about Kala Vidhana, what activity should be done, when, for how long, how many times, etc. So the Kala related aspects are of multiple types. He tries to mention them. So then, Yajna as a concept is not just sacrifice. So I am going to also deal with this today for some time, and of course next class also. Vedas as yajna are important, and yajnas are of different types also. That again Vedas have also mentioned, and Even today, any activity that we do in our daily life can be construed as a yajna. In fact, the heading given is nice in the syllabus part, Science and Technology of Yajna. Science and Technology of Yajna can be understood. We can understand them in various ways. I will also try to come up with such a thing. There is a kind of representation one can try to make mentally what constitutes yajna and then what are the components of this, and any given situation can we have a parallel with the yajna? This is possible. So, because of this concept, Vedas, of course, they get strengthened. They view that Vedas are Nitya, Purushaya, Nirdushta, etc. gets strengthened. And it is one full, complete, exhaustive system, very comprehensively dealing with everything, including daily life. It talks about liberation, it talks about moksha, no doubt, but it is not saying any one of them is better than any other thing. Out of the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, all are equally given the stress. Of course, their variation, their comparison is also mentioned. Moksha is the one that is everlasting, there is no doubt about this. But one need not begin with that alone. After enough of experience, enough of seeing other things, and maybe feeling frustrated that fine, I have not had something that is everlasting, the person himself out of one's own maturity, one's own conviction, comes towards that. That is the way Vedas lead actually. So, there is no condemning or criticizing someone not going after yajnas, not going after moksha. Similarly, even for Nastikas, Vedas do not have any criticism per se. They only say, if a person knowingly does certain things for certain benefit, he should also be able to take responsibility for his decision. And if this angle is properly followed, slowly a person becomes more and more useful to society. Then slowly he sheds certain kinds of acts, certain kinds of words, certain kinds of thoughts, etc. So this is something which again strengthens. There is something which is called as a universal good. And this universal good chooses itself rather than others trying to choose and say, I choose good, I choose bad kind of thing. There is a natural way of trying to establish. And so the word dharma also has that connotation. Dhriti sadhanam dharmaha. There is, in a short way, if you want to say, something that is responsible for equilibrium of the whole universe is called dharma. Dharmo vishwasya jagatah pratishtha. Dharma is not religion. Dharma is not philosophy, or it is not sampradaya, etc. Dharma is a very basis, very foundation of the entire universe on which the whole thing rests. Things are carrying on as they are. That is, how does the sun rise? How does the stars come up in the night? How does the seasons change? How does the nature have its own way of creating various kinds of plants, animals, etc. It supports them, it also destroys them at times, etc. So what is the reason behind, who is the person in charge, and then how does the whole system work out? It is very difficult for any single person in some place to know. But Vedas then deal with every one of these kind of angle. So that is how then a process is coined called yajna. That is, you have a proper systematic approach of doing something, and for doing something you should anyway begin with, what do I want to achieve doing something, how do I achieve this, how long will that benefit result, will it also have any negative aspects into that, is there a way of avoiding them, etc. So these are certain kinds of very simple step-by-step approach, then such a thing becomes yajna. So yajna as a single word has of course a lot of deeper meanings. Grammatically it has 4 different meanings in the Dhatupata as per Panini. Yaja is the root from which the word yajna or yaga is derived. This yaja as the dhatu, yaja means Deva Puja Sangati Karana Dhaneshu. Yaja Deva Puja Sangati Karana Dhaneshu, the way it is mentioned. So Deva Puja, Yaja Deva Pujayam is one of the meanings. The higher powers than us, if they are pleased, if we conduct ourselves in tune with them to be able to get the blessings, then it is a yajna. So yaja is Deva Pujarthaka, one thing. Sangati Karana, bringing things together, making things happen, coordinating. This also is one of the meanings of yajna. Many times we hear we have to arrange some function, let us say a large scale public function. It takes a lot of efforts and it goes like a yajna. This is certain times, of course. Those who know about this concept, they might mention like this. That is okay, somebody conducts a marriage in a family. It takes so much of effort, so many people to participate, so many imponderables, things that can go wrong, etc., etc. And still finally when something happens to some level of satisfaction, it goes like a yajna, is the kind of mention that people make of. That is, yajna is something which is on a large scale, which requires a lot of coordination. There are many actors in this, and each one has to be given their prominence and proper importance, and of course, the time-wise, place-wise, item-wise, their presence, ensuring that the order is maintained, etc. So this is the second meaning of the dhatu itself. Yaja also means sangati karana, make things sangata, make it meaningful, make it effective, make it efficient, etc. So then of course dana, yaja dane also. Yajate means it involves giving gifts to people, dakshinas kind of thing is possible. Benefits in general, something that benefits a large number of people, large number of things. So, yajna as a concept has pleasing the divine forces as the main predominant angle. This divine forces could be anything, even nature itself is stated as a divine thing. So, this devata concept in the Vedas is not specific to only certain deities like Indra, Surya, Chandra, etc., Varuna, Mitra, Agni kind of people. Devata can be anything. In the mantras also, as I said earlier, Yatena Uchyate Sa Devata. Whatever the mantra describes, that is called Devata. And Devatas can be living, non-living, higher evolved beings, etc. God also, of course. There are various forces which are Devatas. So even nature is looked at as a Devata, and as Deva Puja, yajna involves, even when we use, let us say, trees, plants, creepers, various kinds of things for the yajna, at every place where we receive benefit from nature, we are also expected to give back and be responsible. And so there are mantras, homas, there are a number of activities which are to see that the system gets replenished. So it's pleasing of divine forces through a huge coordinated effort to benefit as vast a majority as possible, as many as possible. So, Yaja, Deva Puja, Sangati Karana, Daneshu, these aspects make something to be designated as a yajna. And the yajna could be in number of forms. It need not only involve so much of, let's say, money or resources or time or people, etc. Even japa is termed as a yajna. Tapas is termed as a yajna. Jnana is termed as yajna. Japa yajna, jnana yajna, dravya yajna. Dravya yajnas are, of course, where specifically certain objects are used, consumed. Whereas there are tapo yajnas, there are jnana yajnas, there are even brahma yajna. Veda itself mentioned reciting one chapter of Veda every day is called brahma yajna. Anyway, this part, of course, we need to understand. Vedas have said, view life as a yajna is one teaching from the Vedas. It is a responsible, deliberate action meant to produce good for all, as many, as infinite beneficiaries as possible, through, of course, a proper, systematic, well laid out procedure. So, from this point of view, yajna requires knowledge first as the basis. Yajna itself can be, knowledge itself can be yajna, so that you learn, you contemplate, you understand, you propagate, you ensure things are in place, etc. That itself is a yajna. Like Kanva, the sage Kanva in the Shakuntalam, if somebody reads the Sanskrit play Shakuntalam by Kalidasa, sage Kanva was the person who was actually bringing up Shakuntala. And in his ashrama only Dushyanta, the king, went and saw her, and then of course later he married her. And Kanva, the rishi, is said to be a Kulapati, A Kulapati is a person who trains 10,000 students. This is the way it is mentioned. If a person is capable of propagating knowledge, in-depth knowledge about Vedas, Shastras, etc., the 14 Vidyasthanas, to a very large number of people, it's a yajna. So he has been doing jnana yajna of a very high order. So japa yajna is possible. Vasishtha is said to be Vasishtho japatam varaha. All the times keeps on doing japa, mantra japa, for the benefit of the universe, for universal good. So Vasishtho japatam varaha. So he is good at japa yajna. So there are also Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna in Gita, if you see, Dravya Yajna are some where maybe we use ghee, we use samida, we use dabba, we use pashus, we may use milk, curds, etc. Various kinds of dravyas. So Dravya Yajnas are possible, Japa Yajnas are possible, Jnana Yajna is there, Tapo Yajna is there. So, but why the word Yajna in all cases is because of these 3 points. There is a deliberate effort towards universal benefit through seeking divine blessings and following, of course, certain systematic, meticulous way of procedures given in the Vedic text. Okay, so yajnas are always related to Vedas, no doubt. And Vedas themselves have multiple kinds of yajnas. And of course, one of the statements that is very significant in the same chapter called the Swadhyaya Brahmana Taittiriya Aranyaka, is a very, very useful, very, very helpful chapter in the whole of Veda, which also talks about Vedadhyayana should be done. It is also Swadhyaya Adhyatavya also is mentioned in this chapter, but it develops that concept very systematically, thoroughly. So the yajnas part it mentions, it also has mentioned about Rishi, who becomes a Rishi, how Brahma comes and reveals itself, etc. So after that, there are of course some very significant errors that are possible from our side and how to be guarded against mistakes, errors, etc. So there can be sin accruing out of various errors, deliberate and otherwise. So to see that we are freed of them, there are some number of mantras which mention about the kinds of errors, problems, mistakes one can undergo in this world, like saying untruth. You are now promising somebody will give something, you know in your own heart you are not going to give, knowingly giving wrong promises, false promises, etc. These are some kind of thing. Or for the sake of livelihood, you try to misrepresent facts. Also trying to see that out of jealousy, out of malice, out of anger, out of sorrow, commit things which you know yourself are wrong. So there are that way a big list of possible errors, the ones that can lead to sin and how to get rid of them. And again mantras which will see that we are rid of such problems. And there are certain number of mantras called Kushmanda mantras. There is a homa to be done called Kushmanda homa, which will absolve a person of all such kinds of papas. If you do all this, then you become pure enough. Then of course you become a Rishi. This is the way it slowly talks about. This chapter begins with Yajnopavita. That is, for those who are authorized to learn Vedas, they should have this Upanayana Samskara, in which of course Yajnopavita is a kind of thread, or it could be a cloth, it could be the deer skin, which is used in the form of Yajna Upavita. Of course, it also mentions for Devatas, for Rishis, for Pitrus, how we should wear this, etc. With this Yajna Upavita, then the second section talks about the Sandhyavandana, why Sandhyavandana is to be done, its significance, and then the possible errors in somebody's life, anybody's life, this Kushmanda mantras. So, first section is about Yajnopavita, second section is about Sandhyavandana, next 4 sections are about this Kushmanda mantras. Then, the next section, next Anuvaka talks about how this was seen by the Rishis and how did they, out of their compassion, teach the later people through a parampara. Then, how they become Rishis, so that is explained. And after that, what do these Rishis do as a routine? Then it mentions they are always into yajnas. And among them talks about 5 major yajnas. Panchava ete mahayajnaha. 5 mahayajnas, pancha mahayajnas. But though there are 5 in number and each one is called a mahayajna, they can be done in a very short time and they have to be done every day. This is the way the Shruti later explains. So this actually brings us to what exactly is knowledge, what is the content of knowledge, how to benefit from knowledge, how to apply knowledge, etc. So from this point of view is what I was saying in the very first class. I am not sure whether jnana is equivalent to knowledge as we understand today. But anyway, I will try to explain the jnana traditionally so that we can keep adding so many factors and adjectives or aspects. If all these are present, such a knowledge can be jnana in the Indian tradition. Okay. So the Vedas and Yajnas have something like description-describer relationship. Vedas describe Yajnas. That is, they contain descriptions of different kinds of yajna, and among them, of course, Panchavayate Mahayajnaha, Satati Pratayante, Satati Santishtante. That is, they can be just begun and be over in a very short time. So they have to be done every day. So what are these 5? Then the Shruti has mentioned Deva Yajnaha, Pitri Yajnaha, Bhuta Yajnaha, Manushya Yajnaha, Brahma Yajna iti. So these are the ones that actually tries to make clarity around the word knowledge that we use. When we say somebody is a jnani, Krishna also says jnani tvatmaiva me matam. I treat him as my soul if I find a jnani. But it is very difficult to find a person. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prabhudyate. It's very difficult to get a person like Vasudevaha sarvam. It is a Mahatma Sudurlabhaha, he mentioned. So, Jnani, Mahatma, Yogi, etc. These are the words Krishna reserves for a person who has realized his responsibility, who has understood the cosmic nature or the capacity, the characteristics of nature, the universe, through the agency of Vedas, through the instructions in the Vedas. So, the next concept, anyway, we are wanting to expand is this yajna. So now if we look at these 5 yajnas, Deva Yajnaha, Pitra Yajnaha, Bhuta Yajnaha, Manushya Yajnaha, Brahma Yajnaha, this deals with different kinds of scenarios and contexts. Deva Yajna is that which is not comprehensible by our senses. We cannot see. For example, even Surya is a Devata. Surya as a Devata is different from the Surya Mandala that we see every day. When sun is shining, we are able to see the Surya Mandala. It is a source of light, and of course, even according to science, it is called as a star, and then it is disintegrating, it has got, very huge temperature in it, etc. That is not the Devata. In that, there is a power, a potency called Devata. So, Devas are those who make things work, who give power, who give Shakti to various objects to be effective. So, Devas per se are not directly experienced by us, but they are inferred through their results, through their effects. Okay. So, Deva Yajna deals with doing homas in Agni. Yad Agnau Juhoti api samidham tad Deva Yajna santishthate. Every day you make a sankalpa, I want to do Deva Yajna now, and then take a samit. Samit is the twig of a tree. There are certain trees which are meant to be used in the yajnas, which will help the purpose of the yajnas in the end. So, Palasha is one of them. Negrodha, Audumbara, Ashwatha, Plaksha, etc. Different trees. Take a branch of a tree, within that, of course, a small twig, let us say, 8 to 10 inches long, and maybe 1 centimeter in dia. So if such a thing somebody takes, roughly this is the description of a samit. You take a samit of a yajniya vriksha, a tree which is suitable, which is mentioned to be used for the yajna, and put it in fire, saying, okay, Agniya Swaha, Indraya Swaha, Somaya Swaha, etc. So, yat Agnau Juhoti api samidham tat Deva Yajnaha santishthate. So now, this is not for the exact act. I am not saying everyone should take a samhita and do Deva Yajna in Agni every day. Yeah, there are issues of authorization, ability, tradition, and knowledge and things like that. The concept behind is important. Yajna as a concept is applicable to everyone, everywhere, at all times. Within that, this fivefold division, Deva Yajna as one kind of. So Deva Yajna means those divine forces which we are not able to directly experience, grab or catch hold of or understand, but which nevertheless affect us, help us, or maybe at times they can be detrimental. To be able to receive the blessings of such forces, or to be able to benefit from such forces, to be also be able to pass it on to the others who depend on us kind of, or whom we would like to benefit. So this concept is what is mentioned, is coming under the Deva Yajna, among the Yajna. Yeah, I think it is 4:30 now. If there are any queries, yes, I will take some and then we will close for the day. I will continue with this topic, Vedas and Yajnas of knowledge further. We will try to anyway follow as much as possible in the thing that is given, the syllabus kind of outline that is given. So, life itself is a Yajna, various processes are Yajna. This is how we are going to anyway expand this from the Vedic text. So, okay, is there any interaction required today? Anyone wanting to have any questions or clarifications, observations?
Actually, Namaste, sir. There is no question as such.
Hello?
Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yeah, a little louder, please. I think your voice level is low.
I'll just a moment.
Yeah, a little more louder, or maybe closer to the mic or something. Vaishnavi is speaking, is it?
Yes, sir. This is Vaishnavi here.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have any particular query. You have
Sorry?
actually. I don't have any particular query.
Huh.
There is no particular query.
Okay.
But I just wish to say that you have covered a very vast and very esoteric element of the traditional Vedic concept. So this is,
Yes.
it was quite vast, but it was presented. I cannot imagine that this kind of a presentation can be done at any time. It was really a very wonderfully exposed lecture, sir, because it all came out in a very good, in a very easily understandable manner, and in the same time touching the heart of the tradition. It was a really wonderful exposition, sir. Thank you so much for this.
As I said, Vedahi Yajnartham Abhipravruttaha. If someone were to say, why were the Vedas there in the first place, we should know what they have been saying. In fact, in the coming lecture also, I will at least put this anyway. That will bring it down to real life anyway. So I assure you, from this top-down approach, then we will be able to look differently at life, and so it can help in transformation. So Vedic knowledge is meant for transforming or realizing where are we, what do we think of, and what exactly the way things are, and can we improve ourselves by our own change in the attitude, change in the way we look at things. And Vedas are definitely helpful. But there's no doubt about it. Let us see, yeah. Esoteric, no doubt. Yeah.
Yes, the concepts are very esoteric. Of course, these are things that, I can understand the reality or the, actual authenticity of the exposition. But this kind of, I have never come across something like this with this kind of clarity and with this kind of, it is not only quantity wise, but quality wise also. Definitely it is a lecture that has to ideally go viral on the web,
No, that's okay. See, it's not that everyone should have the same disposition. See, it actually means something to those who are disposed more towards maybe understanding the root of things kind of. Otherwise, maybe it may not mean much. But this course, I hope this course is meant for such people who would like to dig into our own text, our own tradition, and understand at least why did our ancestors give so much importance to something. In fact, it is a way of life. in some parts, if I am certain things, it is maybe because I also follow it in my life, in my daily life, and so few things come out of experiencing certain things rather than reading. See, there are two kinds of knowledge. A knowledge that comes through, let us say, practice, through contemplation, to thinking over, let us say. We keep doing things, no doubt. When we start thinking about what are we doing, why are we doing what we are doing, kind of, and things like that, then they take a different meaning. The same way mantras, I am sure there are a number of people, scholars who know this mantra. What would happen is, have we thought about how to apply, how to look at it, or how to try to share it with kind of. Yeah, so
I think we are really very fortunate that way. This was not merely an academic session. I mean, the idea.
I don't know. Purely academic. It's okay. You need to get a degree, you need to get some marks, that's a different thing. There has to be test assignment, all that. But I still believe there should be something somebody could have lived through, an experience that one carries, which will further help, which will make him a better person, or it will take him much higher. Okay, that should also be part of education. Otherwise,
it was definitely more spiritually, helpful, and I am happy that this was not restricted only to being an academic session where a portion is completed, kind. It was actually.
No, I was also telling Dr. Sai. Yes. See, I have never thought in my life. I have been a researcher, I have been working in CDAC, doing projects, kind of thing. Or I was earlier designing aircraft, etc. But it's a new experience for me. But anyway, I have begun in some way which I found. It was coming naturally to me.
It has been a great. I'm sure. Really happy I was able to, be a part of this, sir. Thank you so much.
Good. Yeah. Yes.